है भी सच, नानक होसी भी सच। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. A lot of times, especially today in the modern world, we look for validation in everything, and the way that we're raised, the way that we're taught, is always through a scientific lens, which is great. That if you can prove something, or if it's widely accepted with evidence, you can observe it, then therefore you can consider it true, you can consider it real. Now, in a lot of aspects, this is great. So in the same mentality, with the same mentality, we look at everything in life, including our faith, including Sikhi. That's why in the last, you say, 20, 30 years, there's been a lot of discussion, there's a lot of talk about how does Sikhi, or how does faith in general, compare to scientific reasoning, scientific evidence. Is Sikhi a religion, or is it a science? Some say, you know what, I feel like it's more of a science. Some people say, no, it's all about a religion. Let's look at this. My answer to this is it's both and it's neither. Now you might think, what? What do you mean, how can it be both and how can it be neither? Both of them are against each other. Let's first look at the definition of what classifies as science. What is the actual definition of science? And what is the actual definition of religion? So according to the Oxford definition of science, it is the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. To put it simply, it's basically looking at everything and finding proof through that, studying everything that you can see. Now when we look at the definition of religion, the Oxford definition of religion is the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal, something like God or gods. So when we look at that and compare it to the definition of science, we see that observing the natural world with observation and evidence, and then the belief with faith in something called God or Waheguru that controls all of this, all of creation, all of the world. When we look at both of them, neither one of them is a complete definition of what we call Sikhi, but both have to do with it. So let me look at the scientific aspect first. An intellectual and practical study. Is Sikhi intellectual? Absolutely it's intellectual when comparing the Oxford definition of science. It's intellectual and practical. We do, with Sikhi, Guru Sahib teaches us everything with reasoning. In fact, science is a study that has not found its end. That's where the fault is. When you study science, we're looking at the world and we're discovering new ways, new methods of how things work and how things equal out, which is beautiful. There's so much wondrousness in studying creation. When we try to find the absolute peak and when we say this is everything, that there's nothing beyond this, that's where it comes to fault. Because you're looking at practical, intelligent evidence through reasoning, through evidence and proof. But if we backtrack into the history of science, go back 100 years, go back 500 years, things that we absolutely believe today that these are true. 500 years ago, somebody would laugh in your face and be like, you're completely making things up. You could have it as simple as, huge metal flying objects that carry hundreds of people across the world. You can travel from here around the world, within 30 hours. And somebody will be like, you're making stuff up. Stop talking about magic. Stop talking about these things. Because according to reasoning, at that time, according to their reasoning, yes, it's true, it can't happen. But as progress happened, then it became a true fact. Now, something that is proved today could also be false in the future. This is also something that's happened, where theories that were proven true, they were proven false by later researchers. And in the same way, things that are completely not believed in today, maybe 100 years from now, maybe 50 years from now, as things progress, they'll find evidence of that, because it's observing the natural world through evidence and reasoning. So Sikhi is absolutely intellectual. Guru Sahib knew all of these things which we consider true, and maybe the liberal world is moving towards them today, of equal rights, of why we eat our food in a certain way, why we cleanliness, why we meditate. Now the entire world is focusing on meditation. Be like, wow, everyone's going through depression, everyone's having mental breakdowns, and we need to step back from what people think, detach a little bit and actually meditate and calm our minds down. You're finding scientific reasoning through the breath, through meditation, through reciting certain words or mantras. Eating healthy, and now the world is on this huge vegan movement, and Guru Sahib has always been saying that eating through compassion, eating through daya has always been a motive of the Khalsa. So equal rights for men and women, these things have always been coming from Guru Sahib from the absolute beginning. When we look at Sikhi is the absolute truth. It's as if, you can imagine this example, one is progress climbing up the mountain. You're still trying to climb all the way up. The other one is you've already reached the top and you know exactly where you're going. The other one hasn't reached the top, it's still in progress. Whereas Sikhi is absolute truth, whether today it's provable or it's not provable. Is it intellectual? It's more intellectual than a lot of intellectuals can discuss a lot of these things, but the word of God, that's what Sikhi is. We're trying to learn what the hukum of God is, the command of God, and following practically through these steps. So as we're practically reciting and trying to understand, we're trying to take away the ignorance and foolishness of our mind, trying to make things make sense through reasoning as well, because that's how our mind functions. If things make sense, through faith, we do them. And then moving forward, past that, through practical, intellectual, we are able to help other people get rid of their doubts. Now moving forward, are we looking at the natural and physical world and observing it and trying to figure things out through Sikhi? Absolutely. But through a much more subtle and powerful lens than what the modern world might be looking at it. How? If ever someone looks at the world and they say, protons, neutrons, atoms, through the theories of relativity, or maybe, the researches of the entire world is going through a certain frequency, and all of these things can be put into the theory of where everything's expanding. Gurbani is looking at that through a much more deeper lens. You can look at it through the practical things, and all of these things make sense. The Big Bang theory, where it's saying Big Bang, but that's not the sound Big Bang. And even the scientific researchers that say that the Big Bang, it wasn't really the sound of the bang. It's actually not a bang that happened. It's a really rapid expansion that happened. So it should be the super rapid expansion theory. Really, that's what they're saying. But when we're looking at Gurbani says this from the very beginning, absolute truth. You can do these researches and look through Gurbani, and eventually the more research you do, that if you do it through faith, it becomes bhakti, it becomes meditation, becomes devotion. Because Guru Sahib said it, Eka Kavao, through one Shabad, that entire creation was created through the sound. and we look at that as ik oankar, as complete oneness of this entire world, everything within it, and we see duality within it. You can look at different philosophers, René Descartes, or all of these other philosophers, Aristotle, or any of these guys. A lot of these things which when we study into philosophy or science, and then we compare them to Sikhi is already way advanced all of this. And when I read into this, I compare it to Sikhi and I say, wow, Guru Sahib completely makes sense of this. So I can, through reading Gurbani and knowing the meanings of Gurbani, read these philosophies and say, okay, this makes sense to me. This doesn't make sense. Okay, I can see where they're going. Don't worry, you're almost there. And there's absolutely no doubt in mind. Through practicality and something to get to this. Something to get to this is when you actually experience this through practical observation in the world. Because Gurbani is saying this entire world is the form of God. Everything that you see it is Waheguru working, God working through everything, omnipresent, through love, complete bliss. And at the beginning, someone special, they commented and they said that, can you please discuss the problem of induction? And that's where this fits in. What the problem of induction is, to simplify it, it's basically past experiences of ours which we use to come to outcomes, to say that this is possible, this is not possible in the future. This can happen and this won't happen, based on what we've done in the past. So a lot of times that hinders us to say that, to actually doing certain things or choosing making certain decisions, because we've experienced this 10 times and it's never been true. So in the future, it's not possible either. When we compare that to our own abhyas or our own meditation, our own spirituality, we say, well, I tried, meditating once, twice, 3 times. It didn't really work. So therefore, it can't exist. But there's so many ways which we haven't tried it. Have you tried it with sadhu andi sangat? Have you tried it, doing it through pure love and intention? If you're not able to experience that pure love and remove the ignorance and doubts of your mind to be able to focus your concentration properly at 100%, then, how can you grow that love? Because emotion and that love is what allows all these waverings of your mind to go away. With that focus, if you don't know what you're falling in love with, then you can't fall in love with it. So there's so many different outcomes and things which you can't actually decide upon if you're saying that, well, based on my experience. Well, based on your experience, that's led to you to this place now. But now what are you going to do in the future? Somebody might say, that's like, Gyani Satsang Ji Maskeen, they describe in one of their talks. They say that this is like comparing someone who believes in the sun compared to someone who doesn't believe in the sun. The person who doesn't believe in the sun, they could say that, I don't believe in the sun. I've never seen it. I don't care about it. And, it's never going to be there for me. So, therefore, I completely disregard it. Problem is they're blind. They can't see. Someone who is not blind can look up and they just see the sun. And the person might say, hey, don't doubt the sun. The sun is there, but you're just blind to see it. Other person will say, no matter what you say to me, you cannot show me the sun. And the person will have to say, for you, it's true, you can't see the sun. Therefore, for you, there is no sun. For you, therefore, there is no experience of God. But for the person whose eyes are open and they're able to see God and experience God, then they're absolutely, you can't convince the person that there is no God, there is no sun. It doesn't work in that way. Therefore, for them, in their position, through their perspective, yes, there is no experience of God. But for the entire world and all of creation, for you to say, just because it's not for me, but it should be that way for the entire world, that would be your own ignorance. That would be foolishness. So just based on your experiences, you cannot create a full thing. You have to go through others' experiences. This is where the difference between science and religion, we look at it, is this aspect of ignorance. Because when we look at science, it's amazing. Everything is one. Everything is protons, neutrons. Everything is moving in the frequency of sound. It's expanding and shrinking together. But the faith aspect, that can only come when you put yourself and your own awareness, your own consciousness into the equation. If your consciousness is not into the equation, okay, that might go into psychology and different things. And somebody might classify, oh no, that's not science, that's spirituality. Spirituality is that missing link between the two. If science is an observation of the world, Sikhi is saying through the observation of the world, when you put your faith and love into it, through that, to that supernatural, super powerful God that's omnipresent in this world, you can remove your ignorance. You put yourself a part of that equation, which turns into spirituality. Therefore, that love and that belief allows you to see what everything, all the truth in this entire world, which you can't see through an ignorant eye. So let's put it this way. At the beginning, you do need evidence. You need proof. So go out through that reasoning. Make sure things make sense. But keep in mind, to say that Sikhi is logical, absolutely false. To say Sikhi is all about reasoning, absolutely false. There's so many debates about Christianity and the scientific philosophers about, reasoning and faith. But we're not even going to go into that debate. We are saying reasoning, but to a certain extent where we say God is beyond reasoning as well. Waheguru is within reasoning, within this evidence. But you can't put Waheguru Paramatma to rules based on what you believe, based on your past experiences. These are what you think, that these are rules. Therefore, Waheguru must be part of those rules as well. No, Waheguru is beyond, endless, omnipresent. If you were saying the world is absolutely endless, the world is limitless, then your experience, your potential, and Waheguru, all of these things, they're all endless as well. It's like Gurbani says, Koob payo jaise dadra. Just like a frog is stuck in a pond. It's lived its entire life in this well or inside of this pond. And then one day it meets the frog of the ocean. A frog that's seen the ocean, has jumped into the ocean, jumped out of the ocean. Both of them meet. One asks, how big is the ocean? The other one says, it's huge. You won't be able to imagine it. I've been there. The other one says, well, he jumps from one side of the pond to the other side of to the middle of the pond. And he says, is it this big? Is that how big the ocean is? The frog from the ocean says, no, the ocean is massive. It's beyond comprehension. You won't be able to, figure it out like that. So he jumps again. Is this how big it is? He said, no. He jumps again and he reaches the edge of the pond. And he says, it has to be this big. And the frog from the sea says, no, it's much bigger than that. The frog turns around because based on his previous experience, that's all he knew. So he said that, don't lie to me. You're a liar. You make things up. There's nothing bigger than this in the world. Because that frog from the pond had never seen anything outside the pond. So he's only ever experienced that. That's where the missing gap is. When you begin to experience Paramatma, you dive in, you jump in, you go beyond reasoning, and then you come back to reasoning. Through that experience, everything will make sense. And to the extent where through reasoning, you find faith. When there's so much reasoning and makes sense, eventually you will find faith, you will find love. And through that experience of Waheguru, through that connection, through actually seeing the sun, through actually seeing the ocean, using the analogies I gave before, when you actually experience Waheguru, then anything else that tries to cut it out, you'll say, no, that's not true, because through my observation of the world, through my experience of the world, what science is, I can't write it down for you because it's beyond words, it's beyond these formulas. These are formulas that man have created. Yes, it's amazing progress. Maybe some scientists or some aspect of science is to advance society. Great, use it to advance society, but use it for righteous reasons. Don't use it for, tyranny or, to become egotistic. Use it for the betterment of the world. Use it for the betterment of the earth. Now, some aspects might be trying to figure out different ways to, look into people and surgery, medical sciences, psychology, looking into mental health, seeing how people work in behavior and all of this kind of stuff. Gurbani is going through all of this, and they're already explaining through the vices. This is why somebody behaves in this way. Of course, when we look into science, it actually supports all of these things and helps us understand spirituality more. So my answer to this is, don't compare the two. They're actually both in it. But sometimes the way that we actually see religion and see science based on our thoughts beforehand, we see them to be something else. And the way as soon as you hear the word religion, you think, wait, Sikhi can't be this. That's, well, Sikhi a religion? Well, it doesn't really go according to that. Somebody might say, no, Sikhi is kind of like trying different things out, experiencing, reciting God's name. And then for me, it feels more of like a science because things add up. And of course they're going to add up. But let me tell you this, eventually this experience of Sikhi of yours will go to an extent where even if the world proves otherwise, you'll say, no, this for me is true, because your own inner experience, that for you becomes the ultimate truth. No evidence, some scientific study somewhere in Harvard or Oxford or Princeton, somewhere in the world, it happened, and therefore you read an article, and just because there's a reference written underneath, you say that must be absolute truth. Your own experience will be able to tell you what is true and what is not true. You'll be able to rise above these thoughts, and instead, you'll be able to go out and use this experience to help guide the world through scientific means. A lot of when I study into these debates between science and religion in the past, a lot of the ones that believed in a supernatural Waheguru, Paramatma, or God, in whatever faith, through Christianity, Judaism, a lot of them were the leading scientists, were the leading researchers. The person that created the theory of relativity, that person believed in faith, Einstein. Now, let me re-say this last part again, that your experience of Waheguru will begin from logic and reasoning. But once you go into the experience of reciting God's name and find that bliss, and now once that connection is made, then you realize all of these things that which you thought before were through reasoning, they go beyond reasoning. So then therefore you never look at Sikhi, you never look at Guru Sahib, you never look at Gurbani through reasoning anymore. It goes beyond that. So science and Sikhi is a religion and a science. It's neither and it's both. How you define science and religion, that is what makes the difference. Truly, Sikhi is an experience to learning, to removing your ignorance, to merging with God. That's both practical, all intelligent, incorporates faith, incorporates love, incorporates the experience of shattering your previous prejudices of the world, of how you view the world. It transforms you. It's a transformation. So that's why when we look at this question, really, if we say science is practical, then you have to make Sikhi practical. Where science fails is the putting your own consciousness, own awareness into the equation, and the aspect of love. When you can incorporate love, and yes, here people believe that's an emotion, but not false love in the world. True love. Search what true love is. Use everything in the world to support this experience, the study of yourself through the guidance of the Guru. And the difference is you have teachers within science as well. You might have people like, atheist Professor Peter Singer, or the old term ancient philosophers, Theodorus, a lot of these guys. These are the people that actually decide which direction philosophy or scientific studies go in today's world. They might be different people. There's somebody leading it. The question of who's your guru? There's a guide, there's a teacher there as well. It's your prof from university. Is that deciding for you the ultimate truth, or will it be Guru Sahib, the embodiment of God within this world, whether you believe that or not at this point, that is coming from the origin? So do you want something that's a progress, or do you want something that's there from the absolute beginning? Something that has already reached the end point, and you're actually sitting at that end point, but you just haven't realized that. So Pyareo, let's dive into these questions. Let's fall in love. Let's strive to progress our lives and move towards all of these things, and remove the doubts, remove other people's doubts. And that only comes with our true experience of love and union with Paramatma and losing our ego. So while speaking, I've made many mistakes. I've probably missed out on a lot of topics I could have included into this, but this is a very broad topic. Let's open up this conversation. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what you think, and comment that in the YouTube comments, the Facebook comments. And again, like I said every time, to get this message of Guru Sahib's wisdom out into the world, make sure you do the seva according to the social media algorithms of liking, commenting, sharing, all of these things to expand this channel. Inniyan bentiyan parwan karniyan. Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh.